True success is not built on the prestige, but it's built on the grace we show to others. This story shows you that your characters is the only currency that lasts. It also shows you that kindness is a foundation of greatness. So, like the video and comment where you are.
Chief Adebayo was a man who lived a very big life in the loud and busy city of Lagos. He was 57 years old and he had worked very hard for a long time to build many businesses that made him very successful. If you went to his house, you would see a very tall gate, a beautiful garden with bright flowers, and a large swimming pool where the water looked as blue as the sky on a sunny day. He also had many fancy cars that were shiny and new, which he used to drive from one meeting to another every single day. Chief Adebayo was always very busy and he had many people working for him in all his different offices and shops. Out of all the things he owned, he was most proud of his big supermarket in the middle of the busiest part of Lagos. This store was like his own baby and he wanted it to be the best store in the whole country where every single person would feel happy to shop. He wanted his customers to find everything they needed, from fresh food to nice things for their homes, all while feeling like they were treated with love and respect. However, as time went on, Chief Adebayo started to have a small, quiet worry in his heart that he could not ignore. Even though his business was making a lot of money, he wondered if his workers were actually being kind to the people who came inside to buy things. He knew that sometimes when people become successful, they forget how important it is to be nice to everyone, no matter if they are rich or if they are poor. He wanted to know the truth with his own eyes. He did not want his managers to just tell him things were fine. He wanted to see for himself how his employees acted when they thought he was not looking. He sat in his big leather chair in his office at home, looking out at his garden, and he began to think of a clever plan. He knew that if he walked into his store wearing his expensive suits and fancy shoes, everyone would bow to him and act their very best. But that would not show him the real story of how they treated everyone else. He realized he needed to see the store through the eyes of a regular person, someone who did not have a lot of money or fancy clothes. He wanted to see if his workers were patient and helpful or if they were mean and judgmental. He knew that the only way to find out was to hide who he really was. He decided that the very next morning he would stop being the famous Chief Adebayo for a little while and become someone else entirely. It was a secret plan that he kept only to himself, and he felt a little bit nervous but also very excited to find out what was truly happening inside his own business. He walked to a small dusty room in the back of his house where he kept some old things from many years ago, and he started to search for clothes that would make him look like a very poor man. He found some old faded trousers and a shirt that had a few small holes in the sleeves. As he held those old clothes in his hands, he took a deep breath, knowing that by the next morning he would be going on a mission to see the true heart of his employees. The next morning, the sun rose over Lagos, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and gold. Chief Adebayo stood in front of his large, polished mirror in the storage room, slowly putting on the worn-out, faded clothes he had found. The trousers were baggy and had a few dusty patches, and the shirt was slightly torn at the hem, looking like something a person who had very little would wear. He ruffled his hair to make it look a bit messy, and even rubbed a little bit of dust on his face so he would look like he had been working hard all day. When he looked at his reflection, he did not see the powerful, wealthy businessman that everyone in Lagos knew. Instead, he saw a tired, older man who looked like he had seen many difficult days. He practiced walking with a slightly slower, hunched posture, trying to leave behind the confident, straight-backed stride of a boss. He wanted to blend in with the busy crowds of the city, where people were usually too focused on their own problems to look closely at a stranger. After making sure he looked the part, Chief Adebayo carefully stepped out of his large compound through a small side gate. He did not take any of his shiny, expensive cars because he knew that would ruin his secret plan immediately. Instead, he started walking toward the main road to catch a public bus, just like so many other people in Lagos did every single day. The morning air was already warm and filled with the loud sounds of the city, the honking of car horns, the shouts of street hawkers selling bread and newspapers, and the steady hum of many people moving toward their jobs. As he walked, he noticed how different things felt. When he was usually driving his fancy car, people would look at his vehicle with respect or sometimes envy, but today, as he stood by the side of the road in his dusty, ragged clothes, he felt invisible. Some people walked right past him without even a glance, while others moved slightly away as if he were just part of the background noise of the busy street. He felt a strange mix of emotions in his chest. He felt a little bit of sadness for how easy it was to be ignored when you did not look successful, but he also felt very determined. He knew this was the only way to see if his employees would treat a regular, humble person with the same kindness they showed to the rich people who often shopped at his store. He finally climbed onto a crowded public bus, finding a small corner to sit in. He kept his head down, watching the world go by through the window. He saw the tall buildings, the busy markets, and the everyday life of the people of Lagos. It was a side of his city that he rarely got to experience from the luxury of his private office. As the bus got closer to the busiest town center where his supermarket was located, his heart began to beat a little faster. He was only a few minutes away from the place he had built with his own hands, and he was about to test the hearts of the people who worked for him. He took one final deep breath, preparing to step into his own shop as a complete stranger, ready to see exactly how they would treat him when they thought he was just a poor man with nothing to give. Chief Adebayo stepped off the bus and walked toward the entrance of his grand supermarket. The building stood tall and bright, shining in the morning sun with big glass windows that showed all the wonderful things inside. As he walked toward the door, he felt the heavy weight of his disguise. He moved slowly, his shoulders hunched, looking like a man who was tired and had very little money in his pockets. He pushed the heavy glass door open and walked inside. The air conditioning was cool and fresh, and the store was full of colorful shelves stacked high with food, soaps, and clothes. Everything looked perfect, just the way he had planned it, but as soon as he stepped onto the polished floor, he felt eyes watching him. He started walking down the first aisle, pretending to look for a small bag of rice. That was when he saw them, Emeka and Amara. Emeka was a tall, young man who usually stood by the entrance to help, and Amara was a young lady who worked nearby. Both of them looked at the chief from head to toe, and their faces immediately changed. They did not see a customer. They saw someone they thought did not belong in such a nice place. Emeka walked toward the chief with a frown on his face. He did not say good morning or ask if the chief needed help. Instead, he stood in front of the chief and blocked the path, crossing his arms over his chest. He looked at the chief's torn shirt and dusty trousers and laughed in a way that felt cold and mean. He told the chief that this was not a place for people who looked like him. Amara joined in, giggling and pointing at the chief's dusty shoes. They started to talk loudly, making sure other people in the store could hear them, as if they were trying to embarrass the chief on purpose. "Look at this man," Emeka said with a rude voice, gesturing for the chief to leave. "We do not sell things to people who just want to stand around and make our nice floors dirty." The chief stayed quiet, keeping his head down just like he had planned, but inside his heart was heavy with disappointment. He had spent so much money and time making sure this store was a place of comfort for everyone, and here were his own employees acting as if they were better than other people because of the clothes they wore. Amara stepped closer, her expression showing no kindness at all. She told the chief that if he did not leave right now, she would call the security guard to throw him out into the hot street. They were both acting with so much pride and cruelty, clearly showing that they only cared about people who looked rich and fancy. The chief felt the sting of their words, but he stood his ground, waiting to see what would happen next, feeling like a stranger in his own home. The way they spoke was harsh, and they did not care at all that they were being mean to an older man who was only there to buy something small. It was a clear sign that they had forgotten the most important rule of being a worker: to treat every single human being with respect and dignity, regardless of how they appeared on the outside. The situation was becoming very tense as Emeka and Amara continued to use harsh words, their voices growing louder and drawing the attention of other shoppers nearby. They seemed to enjoy the power they felt in being able to tell a person to leave. Their faces twisted with a lack of empathy that stung more than any physical push. Just as the chief felt that he had seen enough of their cruel behavior and was about to turn around and walk out on his own, a calm and steady voice cut through the noise. It was Ifeoma, a woman who worked at the customer service counter. She had been watching the scene unfold from a distance, and her face showed deep concern instead of the laughter that was on the faces of her co-workers. She quickly stepped out from behind her desk and walked over to where the chief was standing. Her posture soft and her eyes full of genuine warmth that immediately made the chief feel a little bit better. "Stop this right now," Ifeoma said firmly to Emeka and Amara, her voice not trembling, even though she was addressing her own colleagues. She did not care that they were being loud or that they were trying to act important. She only cared that an older man was being treated with deep disrespect. She looked at Emeka and told him that his behavior was not only wrong, but completely against everything the store stood for. Emeka and Amara looked surprised and even a little bit annoyed, but Ifeoma did not back down. She turned her full attention to the chief, and for the first time that morning, the chief felt truly seen. She gave him a kind, respectful smile, just as she would have done for the wealthiest businessman in all of Lagos. She reached out and gently took the chief's hand, offering him a sense of comfort that he had not expected to find in the middle of this difficult test. "Sir, please forgive them," Ifeoma said softly, ignoring the rude glares from her co-workers. "I am so sorry for how they have spoken to you. Please, come with me, and I will make sure you find exactly what you came here to buy." The chief nodded slowly, letting her guide him away from the rude pair. As they walked through the aisles, Ifeoma moved with patience, never rushing him or making him feel like he was a burden. She helped him pick out a few items, carefully checking the prices to make sure they were exactly what he wanted. She talked to him about the weather and the busy streets outside, treating him with the same kindness and care as if he were her own grandfather. The chief watched her closely, noting how she took the time to explain where everything was and how she helped him reach the items on the higher shelves. She did not once look at his torn clothes or his dusty face. She only looked at him with the respect that every person deserves. When they reached the counter, she helped him pay for his things and wished him a very pleasant day, her smile remaining bright and sincere until the very last second. The chief walked out of the store, his heart feeling much lighter, knowing that at least one person in his supermarket truly understood the heart of service. As the sun began to set, casting long, golden shadows across the busy streets of Lagos, the atmosphere around the supermarket began to change. The noise of the day was slowly fading, and the evening breeze brought a bit of coolness to the city. Suddenly, a sleek, black and very expensive car pulled up right in front of the main entrance, shining brightly under the street lights. People walking by stopped to look, wondering who important was arriving so late in the day. The driver stepped out first and opened the back door with great care. Chief Adebayo stepped out, but he was not the same man who had walked in that morning. He was wearing his finest, most expensive traditional attire, made of rich, vibrant fabric that glowed in the light. He looked powerful, tall and very sharp, carrying the quiet authority of a man who owned everything he surveyed. The employees, who were still finishing their work for the day, looked up in surprise, their faces filled with confusion and fear as they recognized their boss. They had spent the whole day laughing about the old poor man they had chased away, and now, the sight of the chief standing there in his true form sent a cold shiver down their spines. Emeka and Amara, who had been so loud and rude earlier, suddenly went very quiet. They stood behind the counters, trying to look busy and hiding their faces. hoping that perhaps the chief had not seen them during the busy morning hours. But the chief walked into the store with a steady, firm step, his eyes looking straight ahead. He did not say a word as he walked through the aisles, but his presence was so strong that the whole building seemed to go silent. He walked all the way to the back and asked for all the employees to gather in the center of the store for a very important meeting. As everyone came together, the air in the room felt very heavy and nervous. The chief stood at the front, looking at each of his workers one by one. Emeka and Amara were shaking a little bit, and they could not look the chief in the eye. Finally, the chief began to speak, his voice calm but very serious. He told them about his secret visit in the morning, and how he had seen the way some of them chose to treat a customer who had nothing to give them. He explained that a business is not just about the money you make or the fancy buildings you own, but about the way you treat the people who walk through your doors. He spoke with such wisdom that even the most stubborn workers had to stop and listen to every word. The chief looked directly at Emeka and Amara, and he told them clearly that their behavior in the morning was not acceptable in his store. He let them know that because they had failed to show the basic kindness that every person deserves, they could no longer work for him. They hung their heads in shame, realizing that their pride and rudeness had cost them their jobs. Then the chief turned his attention to Ifeoma, who was standing quietly in the corner, still wearing her bright, kind smile. He called her to the front, and his face changed from stern to warm. He thanked her in front of everyone for the way she had protected the man they thought was poor. He told the whole staff that Ifeoma was the example they should all follow, and he immediately announced her promotion to a leadership role. The rest of the staff felt a mix of relief and pride, understanding now that in this supermarket, character was the most valuable thing of all.